Happy Monday, everyone. My name is Bricky. I hope you're doing very well. This is one of those videos where you're not going to necessarily need to actually watch what's going on in the background. This is primo second monitor content, driving in the car content, throw on the headphones and do whatever task you feel like doing content. Now, that being said, if you do have it in the background, it's somewhat of a Subway Surfers type situation there. The background gameplay is actually of a game called Nova Drift, a phenomenal Geometry Wars asteroid-style roguelite I played recently. It's kind of got its hooks in me. It doesn't seem to be a particularly popular game, but I found it to be quite endearing and very, very fun. So that's what's going on in the background, in case you were curious about it. It's I don't know, not too much money on Steam at the moment, but some of you of the older variety, and by older I don't mean age, but of fan time, I don't know, how long you've been a fan, may remember me way back when doing these little Monday vlogs. Some folks, I think one of the questions today kind of talks about this, but there has been a decent amount of people who do not realize how much stuff I used to make back in the day. And one of my more common, I guess I'd say common series, if you want to call it a series, well, two of them, that is. One of them was the Monday vlog, which was literally just me playing whatever game happened to be in the background and talking about life or something along that. There was even a little P.O. box opening back when, and there were some very interesting items in that P.O. box. The other one that I did was something called Fireside Bricky, which was literally just conversations in the background of me playing some kind of game. Very often Call of Duty Zombies, because Call of Duty Zombies is the best thing since sliced bread. But I feel like, and I'll talk a little bit more about why in the future, but I wanted to kind of bring that thing back. It's very much in the vein of the classic 2010s era of conversation. Think back to the old school, well, many people know, blast from the past on this one. Many people know CNanners back in the day for his kind of group memery gameplay stuff, old like Gary's Mod game modes and the various types that go along with it. But he was also known very often for just talking to the camera while playing insane rounds of Modern Warfare 2. And let's be honest, that was what I would call peak YouTube at the time. A lot of people may also remember similar types of things back in the heyday of the Call of Duty FaZe community. I know FaZe nowadays is not seen as much of a positive light as it was back then, but back in the time when it was major quick-scoping Modern Warfare and Black Ops 2 montages, to fill the space between those, albeit very difficult and time-consuming montages to make, people just kind of talk to the camera. The closest allegory you might have right now would be Jay Schlatt's, is it Weekly Slap? Is it Slap? I think it's Slap, where he just does the same thing. It's generally some stock image of whatever the game is in the background and then some kind of title that goes along with it. And that's basically what I did for a good period of time, just with my own little spin on it. And I kind of want to bring that back because I will be perfectly honest, it might be a thing that I answer on a different day, but I think I have... I wouldn't say, I would say maybe lost touch with my community might be a little bit of a strong phrase, but I think moving forward so much into so many larger and more grandiose projects and stuff has kind of pulled me away from the general layman that watches my channel, from the average, the normal, the classic, lurker and average individual. And at the end of the day, the normal, the regular person who watches my stuff on their free time and just finds enjoyment out of it is the bulk of my fan base. And reconnecting with that group, I think, is important. And I think there's obviously reasons why I don't necessarily want to go too far with it. And Paris, I've been in a lot of graces of some great VTubers, and I know exactly very well how much parasocial attitudes can cause problems. But obviously, I don't want to go that far. But I do think there is a bit of a lost bedside manner that I would like to bring back. A little bit of a window into the soul, or I don't know, something like that. So for the most part, I opened up a Discord channel on my Discord server, and I asked just for some regular questions. And a lot of the questions were just memery stuff or random questions about Warhammer I don't much care to answer currently because that's not the purpose of this video. But there were a couple of ones that I thought were pretty good. And so I thought I would go ahead and mention them because I think one of them goes along with this kind of conversation. So the first one I have here is from Single Mothers Against Reposting, a fantastic name. And they go, over the past few years, your community has shifted to become more diversified, with a lot of interests, hobbies, fan groups, etc. developing. With so many people having so many interests, while at the same time, you yourself having integrated into the VTubing community, you meet a lot of people, which takes up a lot of space in your head, as well as time. I suppose my question is, do you still feel that this grouping of people are your community? Or do you believe it has evolved beyond, quote, Bricky, unquote, becoming its own thing, like a space rather than a community? Follow-up question, do you worry about feeling emotionally connected with your community as you stretch and move out into different things? See, this is the exact question I was hoping for when I was talking about this kind of thing. I think this really sums up some of the thoughts I've been having, and I'm actually really happy that this question was asked because it is a major reason why I wanted to bring this kind of video back. Speaking of, the goal is to try to release one of these every single Monday, hopefully around the same time. My goal is 8 a.m. Pacific time, but I'm sure there will always be occasional things. I probably will miss a week here and there, but I'm going to try to make sure it's every single week. At least that's the goal. I've done this many times before and failed often. But it's a very good question. And I think it's actually part of the reason why I wanted to do this. And the main thing there is because I think that with the amount of diversifications of hobbies, interests, and games and fan groups I find myself in, it does end up creating this interesting situation where you kind of float into a whole new area. And then most of the people are there for that thing. And then they kind of straggle or just, peter out every so often when you're done with that thing. And normally a couple of people will hang on that stick around. For example, I'm sure there are a lot of Warhammer people that are not so into VTubing. I mean, I myself am not a VTuber, but I've been talking with a lot of them recently. And I would imagine that those Warhammer people, well, I guess Warhammer has a lot of VTubers reacting to it and stuff now. But at the time, I'm sure many of them were not that interested in it, and they were only there for exactly that, the Warhammer stuff. And some maybe stuck around for a long period of time. Granted, it's not like I'm out of that scene right now. I'm still very much in that scene. But maybe there's a better example. Let's say my Dead by Daylight days, when I played a ton of Dead by Daylight. It had a very similar kind of feeling where I would go into the Dead by Daylight world. That was my main thing for a while. And then I would move on. And some people would move on with me and some people wouldn't. And those I would necessarily probably call my community, my fan base, those that stuck around regardless. I think you always run a risk whenever you get into new stuff. And I think that's a little bit of a flaw that I've always had where I just like a lot of stuff. I'm a generally positive person just in my life and the stuff that I do. And I really enjoy playing different video games, talking to different people, and just having that kind of novelty. They say variety is the spice of life and all that. And I tend to get really into one thing and then make some content on it because I like making content on the stuff that I like. And then eventually I maybe get a little bit less interested in it, and then I kind of move off of it for a bit of time. And then some people stick with me on that, those that were part of that group, and then some people don't. Whenever you see me play a lot of games, it's actually something that I end up having to deal with a lot, is people asking me, when am I going to go back to said game? Because there's a good chance that I played that one game a lot over the course of, maybe a month to 2 months and then fell off of it. I grinded all kinds of games super often, and not all of them can be Balatro. Not all of them can just have its grips in me so much that I just do nothing but that game. And that just kind of happens, and that might be a sign of the times. That could be a sign of some kind of mental illness I have maybe, where it's hyperfixation to hyperfixation. But for myself, that is kind of one of the things that brings in people and stragglers. When it comes to the concept of, is it being like evolved beyond, quote, Bricky, becoming its own thing, like a space rather than a community, I think it's a little bit of a tough one to really determine. Because I think there are a lot of types of fan bases. There are a lot of types of communities when it comes to online content creators and even fandoms. And I think the easiest way you can differentiate between the two of them is between the phrase, is it a community or is it an audience? And I think the two of those have a little bit of a different feeling to it all. For example, I'm sure you have a lot of creators, or I keep using the buzzwords, I'm sorry, but it's so like ingrained at this point. There's a lot of people like YouTubers and streamers that have a community. They have a lot of Discord stuff they got going on. There's a lot of community ran events. There's a lot of voting and things of that nature. And then I'm sure there's a lot of people who have just an audience. And that's a whole different thing. Now, an audience is not devoid of personality, but I would argue that the community and the audience are very different things. I'm trying to think of a very good example right now, but the first one I can think of when it comes to a community might be someone like, maybe like Doug, for example. Maybe I have this wrong because I don't know the gentleman personally or anything, but it seems that a lot of the stuff he does involves the chat in some way. You know, they are a part of it somehow. I would also say that smaller streamers, smaller YouTubers tend to have a lot of a community-driven thing. Not to say Doug's like a small person, he's clearly not, but a lot of communities tend to be in smaller, more niche channels because it's more ingrained with a smaller audience. That smaller audience is easier to work with, and there's a little bit less of like the insane hyper fangirlism. Whereas an audience could be something like Northern Lion, for example, where he just does his own thing. He's just the guy, but his entire group, his fan base, his audience is there to watch and be much more reactionary, see the stuff he's doing and then post "I can't" in all caps the whole time, and then do mainly that. Now, it doesn't mean, of course, that an audience does not have a personality. NL's chat has a very distinct personality. Germa has an audience that has a very distinct personality. I'd say Forsen, good God, Forsen. I mean, his audience has a very distinct personality. But even so, that does still feel more like an audience than it feels like a community. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think some people might assume that being labeled as an audience over a community is a negative. It's not. I think it's more on how you interact with that community. Personally, I think I went from community to audience and transitioned over there when I started taking a lot more effort into much larger projects and started traveling a lot more. Probably in the last 2 years, give or take. I think it's adjusted that way because I would say that VTubers tend to have a more audience-based metric, especially depending on the VTuber. Certain VTubers are substantially more community-driven. I'd say someone like Mataracon, for example, she has a lot more of a community feeling with like the Momos and what they do, at least because she involves them quite a lot. Whereas some other VTubers are basically, they have their chat that's just a pure nothing but 7 TV emotes, which again, completely valid. Sometimes more admirable, if I'm being perfectly honest. Sometimes preferable. You know, sometimes there are days where I wake up and I say, I really want to work with my community today. I really want to do stuff with my community today. And other days I'll wake up and I'll say, God, I just want to play this one thing and I just want chat to have a funny time in the background. Actually, funny enough, recently I streamed White Knuckle. It's an early access roguelike climbing game. It's on Steam. It's overwhelmingly positive. I highly recommend it. It definitely took like 10 years off my life, but it is a fantastic game, White Knuckle. But I streamed it recently, and chat was a lot more audience related on that one. They posted a lot of like various 7 TV emotes and funny responses to the things that was happening. It felt more like the audience was all there standing behind me, watching me play and making commentary and cheering me on, which for a game like White Knuckle is really good. That's a very good feeling to have in that scenario. And then sometimes I'll have a much more interest in the community. I want to have a conversation with my viewers. I want to talk about aspects of things. And that part can be really interesting as well. I'd say someone, if we're sticking with the VTubing realm, I'd say someone like Giga has a very good community. She's a strong community. You know, she has all of her various, what are they called? The mobs, the trash mobs, the creatures, monsters, and undead. They have their own little groups, and they filter out into little camps and have their own little personality within the ecosystem. And I think she does a great job of showing off a community in a way. So I think I've maybe moved a little bit too far into audience. If I'm being perfectly honest, as I get older, now that I'm 30, I start to feel like I want an audience more, because I have it can get a bit exhausting interacting with the newer age fans at times. As people watch content, they might not be interested in it anymore, and they move on and they move to a new person. And that's fine. Like if I had a fan for 5 years and they were like, not interested in this anymore, and they moved to someone else, I mean, I'm free entertainment. I'm a second monitor. I'm not necessarily someone who gets really choked up about that, because I do not have a career, a job, a position that warrants me to be upset by that. I am internet funny man. However, with the newer generation of people, they want different things. They expect different things. And to cater to that community can be very difficult, especially when I say younger, like genuinely younger of age. It can be kind of difficult because I have my audience, but my audience is specific. It's what I like to do. And so having an audience as opposed to the community, I think could actually be very helpful for me right now as I get older. But it does not mean I don't want to still foster people who get me. I think that and one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video and go back to this series was I wanted people to understand me, to get what I'm trying to do again, and to get what my whole shtick is as a person, and to keep that community there. I do want to do more community-driven events. I do want to do more things that involve the Discord server, that involve the fan base, that bring them in. But I needed to find a way to do it properly and do it in the way that I'm hoping for. An audience is really good because it's a little bit easier. It's a much easier thing to do. You can relax a lot more when you have the audience that are like there to react to your stuff. But you do lose a little bit of that personability. You lose the feeling of rallying behind someone. And I think sharing parts of my life, sharing how I think, sharing the stuff that I do, is a really good way to keep that and to still foster a community despite me doing so many different things. I don't know if that was a politician answer and I just rambled off the whole time and didn't even answer your question, but hopefully I did. It took me a while to get there, but hopefully it was fine enough, and hopefully I made a good one. Good, very, very good question. Very, very good question. I'm happy I had the opportunity to answer it in a way. I think it helps, just not only to enter like a window into my personal mind, and trying to like want both the community and the audience for different reasons in different ways, but also just it's just a good question. It kind of had me do a little bit of reflection, maybe think a little bit, maybe think like, what do I want? What do I truly want with this thing? Because I know what I want financially, obviously. I have my long-term plans when it comes to like my life. But what do I want in my career? Money is supposed to support your activity. Money, like I always say this one thing: saving money is not a moral good. There is no moral good to saving money. It is an intelligent move because things are difficult and you want to make sure you're secure. But saving, hoarding, especially money, is not morally a good thing. Money in its own right is to be spent to allow you to garner experiences for your whole life until you die. And that is its point. And, so I need to think like, if this is my career, yes, this is my financial incentives, but what do I want to do with this time? Because I won't be 30 ever again, and I won't be 31 ever again, and I won't be 32 ever again. So anyway, we can talk about that stuff maybe a little bit later. We have a second question that I think is actually kind of enjoyable, and it's pretty funny. It's from a small Deus, like kind of like Deus Volt, but it's a small one. It says, so this is sort of coming from that time not too long ago. You mentioned feeling a sense of satisfaction doing physical work that your current job lacks. If it's not too weird of a question, what do you actually view your own work and your position as? You provided hours of entertainment of many forms, and you created various businesses of notable quality and a large community that's not just fun to be around, but also serves as a safe space for people like myself who face open hostility in most corners of the internet. Okay, I feel like I'm being glazed a little bit. Okay, the next word says glazing aside, never mind. I'm curious to know what you think about your place in all of this when you say there's a lack of satisfaction. Do you see yourself as a businessman that happens to entertain? Is it as creative? Is it a community figure? I am just very curious from the perspective of someone in this unique blend of positions. If you read this, I sincerely thank you for your time and have a great day. Thank you very much for that question. And you know what? I'll be honest, I didn't fully read this question before I brought it on. And I feel a little bit foolish because I feel like I teed up this question without realizing it earlier. So a bit ago, I talked about how I went to WeebCon in Dallas, an anime VTuber convention. And I spent a lot of the time setting up a booth there, and I found it extremely satisfying. I really enjoyed the physical labor of doing stuff like that. And I think it harkens back a little bit to both my prior career as well as, well, career is a little strong, prior job, as well as my growing up. Because I was in the Boy Scouts, and I did a lot of physical labor in the Boy Scouts of setting things up, breaking down tables and putting up stuff for meetings and various campouts and stuff of that nature. And I found it very, very satisfying. Now, I think I feel that it was satisfying because I don't normally do a lot of physical labor at all, because that's not my job, clearly. But I found it really satisfying because I think there's just a general feeling in the monkey brain of humanity, not to sound pedantic and overly, overly, I don't know, there's a word for being like a super, ooh, I'm so philosophical. I don't know, maybe pedantic is the word. But like being able to just do work, hard work, physical work, get the endorphins of doing the physical work, and then being satisfied because you had the endorphins. There is somewhere in the brain that helps with that a lot, and I think it makes it just feel good. My dad actually asked me something rather fascinating that I thought was interesting, and we went to a Dodgers game recently over at Dodger Stadium. They were playing the Cardinals. It's actually quite funny because I have no idea about baseball. I'm not a baseball guy, and I was like, Emily is my sister's name. I was like, Emily, why is everyone wearing this jersey that says Ohtani on it? And then she looked at me and she said, Bricky, shut your ass up. Don't say that out loud. You're going to get beaten to death here. Turns out the Shohei Ohtani is a very famous Japanese baseball player who is really good at baseball, it would seem. It would seem. It was very funny. Anyway, but when we were leaving the Dodgers game, there was a fire truck that was heading towards the Dodger Stadium. And my dad looked at me and he asked, do I ever miss that? Do I ever regret that? Do I ever have feelings of regret that I did not follow that career path? And I told him honestly, yeah, I do. Would I change my mind? Probably not. No, I would not. But I definitely do have, maybe not feelings of regret, but I have feelings of longing. For those of you who do not know, I used to be, when I was in high school, I took fire tech and EMT classes to go into firefighting. And I did a whole bunch of fire ride-alongs. I did a bunch of I was an EMT for a little over a year, and I was, kind of moving through the medical field for that kind of stuff. I was never a firefighter. I never ended up getting even close to being a firefighter, but I did a lot of the early courses for ROP stuff, and I was in EMT for a little bit. And I remember loving the job, but hating everything about it. I really loved the doing of the job, but I hated the systems. I hated my boss who cared more about insurance money. The patients hated me because it's the worst day of their lives. The nurses were overworked, so they were awful to me. The doctors were overworked, so they were awful to the nurses. And it was just, it was just a lot of disenfranchisement with what I was doing. And but I found the one thing that I really sat down and said to him was, there was never a moral failing in what I was doing back then. Don't get me wrong, many people in that career suffer from extreme PTSD and problems of that nature, but I don't know if any of them really ever feel like they're doing the wrong thing. There was a sense of extreme moral satisfaction that came with that job that my current job does not have. I do not have that same level of moral satisfaction. There is no level of me sitting here and saying to you, yeah, what I do is right. What my choice in career path is good. That just doesn't exist because I'm internet funny man, you know? I mean, I am very happy that I can provide entertainment. I'm happy that people like my stuff, but it doesn't have that same staying power. It doesn't have that same fulfillment to the soul, if we're going to be, well, there's the word again, I don't know, maybe pedantic or whatever. It doesn't have that. And so there is always a little bit of that is missing, and that's one of the big reasons I miss it. I also liked it because it was just fun. It felt good, you know. It was cool to like go places in the fire engine and talk to patients, and it's a puzzle to solve, you know. Sometimes the injuries were a puzzle to solve, and that was fun, you know. That was good stuff. But to go a little bit more deeper into their point, or to the point of this question, sorry. There is a little bit of a satisfaction that's lacking there. And I think it's one of the reasons why I feel a little bit dissatisfied with my stuff recently, because I've been trying to work so hard on projects that make me feel more creatively expressive. And I haven't been able to see the fruits of that labor yet. We're in the middle ground of it between a large Warhammer documentary that I'm working on and a bunch of other projects. And we're all in the middle. And that middle feels, I don't know, just odd. You know, the painting that you paint looks like crap 90% of the way into the last 10% of the finishing touches. And that's when you finally feel good about your work, right? At the end there. The other businesses that I do, and I mean, those would be Orchid 8, my merchandise company, and Natura Pine, which is not my company. I'm a co-owner of that one, or a partner, so to speak. Those are other companies that they have their own uses. Orchid 8, I mean, its inception was an obvious one. I wanted to do merchandise way back when, and the options were terrible. So I decided to start doing it myself. And then some friends asked me where I did my merch from, and I said, "Oh, that's me, buddy." And then, you know, I brought them on, and I hired some people, and I brought them on, and I hired some people, and now it's a big thing, right? And Natura Pine is just a really fun CPG, aka consumer packaging goods brand. It's a product I use literally daily, and I love it. But I didn't start that company. I'm a co-owner of that company. It's a little different. And so, I mean, those things, like, there's some satisfaction in providing a good product, you know. There's a satisfaction in serving a customer base well and doing things well for that customer base and making things enjoyable. But it doesn't have that same moral fulfillment. It doesn't have that same satisfaction as the rest. But I don't know, like, it kind of comes down to what my goals are, you know? And I mean, in true transparency with everyone, the goal of Orchid 8 and Natura Pine as a business is, like most businesses, do a very good job, make good stuff, serve your clients very well, treat them fairly, treat your customers well and fairly, and then build a business up that's really strong to the point where eventually you can sell the business to whatever big company it is. And then by doing that acquisition, make, you know, a ton of money to then let capitalism work for you. And then you put that money in high yield savings accounts and stuff, and you get to live off those dividends and high interest yield until the day you die. Which I know sounds a little bit ironic, directly coming after me saying saving money is not a moral good. But in this situation, the saving of the money means the increase, or the you gain more because of the saving, which at that point allows me to do the stuff I really want to do. Like, if I ended up getting to that position, you know, 5 years from now or whatever it is, and I sell these companies for, I don't know, tens of millions of dollars, if we're being a little bit zealous with it all. And then from there, after that, like, what's the goal? Well, honestly, the goal is the fun stuff. Oh, here's Bricky's Titanfall 2 tournament held in the esports arena in Los Angeles, California, or San Diego, or somewhere nearby me so I can drive to it. It's $25,000 for the best team in Titanfall 2. Here are the entries. And then I can just burn money on stuff that it doesn't much matter because I have the money to burn. And because owning cash in its own right allows you to get more cash. That's the whole system, you know, and that's why there's a lot of problems with it. Don't get me wrong, but that's how it's used. And you know, like, I want to be able to sit down, get a venue and say, all right, bitches, it's the Halo 3 big team battle sand trap capture the flag tournament. Winner gets $100K. Because no one's doing that, right? No one is doing fun things like that because there's no money in it whatsoever. And if I can put things together like that, that's exciting. I mean, like the Germa Dollhouse stream is an inspiration, a true inspiration, because it's just such an elaborate and ridiculous whole setup and thing going on right there. But it's the kind of thing that I would love to do if I had that money. And I think that's where I find my satisfaction, in the crafting of something bigger, in the building of something bigger, in the funny bit. And to get the funny bits, you have to, you know, stream normally, do your usual stuff, make your normal content. For every 10 hours streamed of the newest Call of Duty, that helps pay for the 2 hours of a massively ridiculous bit of some kind of goof off thing. And that's fun, you know? And so I think that for the most part, you know, you ask about my place in all of this when I say there's a lack of satisfaction. I think it's a different kind of lack of satisfaction. I think that there's a creative outlet that is only sometimes being picked. And if I want to really pick at that outlet, if I want to push it to the level that I really want to push it towards, we're going to need a lot. And my goal, and God, I hope I can pull it off, is to just be good at what I do in a lot of ways, to the point where I can then do the stuff I really want to do and go crazy with it and have that much fun. And then at that point, it's almost, you can be able to do this stuff for others. You know, if a streamer has a really great idea and they approach you with it, and you have total like screw you money, and you can be like, yeah, you know what? Let's make this happen. This sounds fun. Here's $250K. Make it happen. And then you get whatever profit you can from that. But at the end of the day, like, if it fails and doesn't make any money, it's still a cool thing you got to do. So I don't know. That's kind of where I see myself in that kind of thing. It's a hope. It's certainly a hope, and it's internet funny man at the end of the day. But I don't know. It's fun. It is a unique position. That is very true. It's a very unique position, and I like entertaining. I like entertaining people. I think it's fun. But I think what I get the most fun out of is the fun reactions of a lot of people. Like I really like it when I can do some kind of bit, and the chat is like so with it. They're so into it. They're having a great time with it, and there's such like a level of almost like rallying the crowd, you know, almost like a showman, where the crowd can take part of it, but to a certain extent, and it's funny to mold that kind of feeling, and then they feel like a little bit like they're part of it, right? And then it's this level of humor that I really like. So anyway, that's part of it, I'd say. I like my work. I do. Does it contain the same satisfaction as some of my prior stuff? No, it doesn't. But that's what you trade off. You know, I traded off a job that I enjoyed and satisfied me in a lot of ways for one that also I enjoy and satisfy me in other ways. But I'll be totally honest, pays better. It doesn't pay better than the start. Good God, no. I mean, we had to work our way up to that, but it does now. And from that income, I'm able to work on companies and hire people and, you know, pay their salary, and hopefully when things go well and the company does well and the merchandise does well, then when we sell the company for however you normally do, then all of my employees get a really big fat check, and then they can be, you know, happy for themselves and feel like they didn't just slave away their years on something that, well, I hope they enjoy, but, you know, for a lot of them, it's pressing shirts. I know it's not the most exciting thing in the world. Anyway, this has been a little Monday Brick video, the first one in a while. I plan on doing a few more of these, hopefully once a week. There's the Discord channel in the Discord. It's called Monday Brick. It's near the top. The Discord link is in the description, so you can check that one out. But you also, simultaneously, have these comment sections in this video. So if you'd like to leave a comment about something that you're curious about or some kind of question like that, please do. And I'll have some of the mods and stuff take a look, find some good ones, and we'll chat next week. Thank you again so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. I'll be around streaming and doing the usual thing over time. And I just hope that you've, this is one step into being a bit more, I don't know, maybe open, transparent with my audience, my fan base, my community, right? And I'm always scared of the parasocialness. I always want to make sure that I don't take that too far, and I want to make sure that there's no issues there. But even with that, I think this is taking a foot or taking a step into it is okay. So that's that. Thank you all so much again, and I'll see you in the upcoming videos. Have a good one. Bye-bye.